anger is a fire. It rises suddenly, consuming clarity, distorting perception, and leaving destruction in its wake. But like all fires, it needs fuel. It cannot burn without something to sustain it, whether that be resentment, wounded pride, or unmet expectations. Buddhism teaches that anger is not an external force, nor is it something imposed upon us by others. It is a reaction, a fleeting state of mind that only persists when we hold on to it. Most people believe anger is justified. They see it as a response to wrongdoing, an unavoidable part of life. But Buddhism takes a different view. It suggests that anger is a choice, not a necessity. It arises, but it does not have to take root. It appears, but it does not have to linger. The mind, when untrained, clings to frustration, replaying past offenses, justifying resentment, and feeding irritation. But a trained mind, a mindful mind, sees anger for what it truly is: temporary, self-created, and ultimately unnecessary. To never be angry or bothered by others is not about suppressing emotions. It is about understanding them. It is about stepping outside of the reaction, observing it without attachment, and allowing it to pass like a cloud drifting across the sky. Through wisdom, awareness, and practice, anger loses its grip, and what remains is something deeper: patience, peace, and an unshakable calm that no external force can disturb. The path is simple, yet it requires effort. It begins with recognizing that anger is not something others give us. It is something we create. And if we are the creators, we also have the power to let it go. Everything is temporary, even anger. Nothing in life is permanent. The seasons change, the tides rise and fall, and even the tallest mountains erode over time. And yet, when anger arises, it feels absolute, like something that demands attention, something that must be acted upon. But Buddhism teaches that anger, like all emotions, is fleeting. It is not a fixed state of being. It is a passing cloud in the sky of the mind. The only reason it lingers is because we hold on to it. Think about the last time you were truly angry. In the moment, it might have felt overwhelming, urgent, like the only thing that mattered. But where is that anger now? If it has faded, was it ever as real or permanent as it seemed? Most of what upsets us today becomes irrelevant with time. The insult that stung, the inconvenience that irritated, the argument that consumed your thoughts, none of it stays. It passes, like every other moment in life. And yet, people suffer because they resist this truth. They replay past frustrations, revive old grievances, and relive pain that could have dissolved naturally. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes not from what happens, but from attachment to what happens. Anger is no exception. The more you justify it, the more it stays. The more you dwell on it, the more it grows. But the moment you recognize its impermanence, it begins to lose power. When a strong emotion arises, a trained mind does not react immediately. It observes. It acknowledges the feeling without becoming consumed by it. It understands that anger is a visitor, not a resident. One of the simplest yet most powerful Buddhist practices is this: when anger arises, do nothing. Let it be. Do not resist it, but do not fuel it either. Watch it, the way you would watch a wave rise and fall. You will notice something incredible. It weakens on its own. Without your participation, it fades. Without your attachment, it disappears. Everything in life is temporary. Anger is no different. Once you see this truth, irritation loses its grip, frustration dissolves more easily, and peace becomes something you no longer have to chase. It becomes your natural state. Observe without attachment. Your thoughts are not you. A thought arises, they disrespected me. A feeling follows, frustration, resentment, the urge to react. In that moment it feels automatic, as if anger is the only possible response. But Buddhism teaches that thoughts and emotions are not absolute truths. They are simply mental events, like ripples on the surface of a lake. The problem is not that anger appears, it is that we identify with it. We mistake passing thoughts for reality. We believe that because a feeling is strong, it must be acted upon. But what if that assumption is false? Imagine sitting by a river, watching leaves float past. Some are small, drifting by unnoticed. Others catch your attention, pulling you in. This is how the mind works. Thoughts, emotions, and reactions constantly moving through awareness. Most people, without realizing it, jump into the river. They grab onto certain thoughts, carry them, follow them wherever they lead. But a trained mind remains on the shore. It observes without attachment. It watches emotions rise and fall without getting swept away. This is the essence of mindfulness, the ability to witness thoughts and emotions as temporary experiences rather than unquestionable truths. When anger arises, you do not have to suppress it, nor do you have to act on it. You can simply watch it. Ah, anger is here. This simple act of observation changes everything. The moment you step back and see anger for what it is, a passing sensation rather than a command, you weaken its control over you. Buddhist monks practice this daily. When frustration arises, they do not react immediately. They do not feed the story that justifies anger. Instead, they pause, breathe, and observe. They allow space between the emotion and the response, and in that space, anger loses its urgency. It fades because it was never permanent to begin with. In life, you will face situations that trigger frustration, rudeness, unfairness, misunderstandings. But the difference between peace and suffering is not in what happens, but in how you relate to it. If you see anger as your anger, as part of your identity, you will carry it. But if you see it as just another thought passing through the mind, you can let it go, just as easily as it arrived. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer. And the more you practice stepping back, the less control anger will have over you. Drop expectations. Attachment creates frustration. At the root of almost every frustration is an expectation, an unspoken belief that the world should be a certain way, that people should act as we think they should, that life should unfold according to our plans. But Buddhism teaches that suffering arises when we cling to these expectations, refusing to accept things as they are. The more rigidly we hold on to how we think life should be, the more pain we experience when reality doesn't align with our desires. Think about the last time someone irritated you. Was it because of their actions, or because their actions did not match your expectations? You expected them to be kinder, to be more understanding, to treat you with more respect, but they did not. And that gap, the space between what you expected and what actually happened, is where frustration takes root. The mind resists reality, insisting that things should be different. But reality does not bend to our expectations. It moves as it always has, indifferent to whether we approve of it or not. Buddhism teaches that peace is not found in controlling others, but in letting go of attachment to how they should behave. This does not mean you do not care. It does not mean you accept mistreatment. It simply means you stop allowing your inner peace to depend on the actions of others. Instead of reacting with anger, you respond with understanding. People act according to their nature, not according to my expectations. A monk once told a simple story. If you step on a thorn, Do you get angry at the thorn? No. You accept that thorns exist, that walking barefoot carries risks. You remove it, and you move on. But when people feel disrespected or let down, they treat it as a personal attack. They take offense. They hold on to resentment. They replay the situation in their minds. In doing so, they turn a momentary discomfort into prolonged suffering. This is the power of releasing expectations. When you stop assuming that others will act as you wish, you stop being constantly disappointed. When you accept that life unfolds in unpredictable ways, you stop resisting every inconvenience. When you stop believing that the world owes you fairness, you stop being upset when it does not provide it. Buddhism does not suggest passivity, it suggests clarity. See things as they are, not as you wish they were. Expect nothing, appreciate everything, and you will find that frustration has nowhere left to take hold. Respond with compassion. Hurt people, hurt others. It is easy to believe that when someone is rude, dismissive, or cruel, they are acting with intent, that they mean to harm, that they seek to offend, that their words or actions are directed at you. But Buddhism teaches that most people's actions are not personal. They are projections of their own inner struggles, their own unhealed wounds, their own unseen suffering. When someone lashes out, it is often not a reflection of who you are, but of the battles they are fighting within themselves. Imagine a person drowning. Their arms flail, their movements are desperate. If you were nearby, they might grab at you, pull you under, even hurt you in their panic. But their intention is not to harm, they are simply overwhelmed. Anger, bitterness, and cruelty often come from the same place. People act from pain they have not yet resolved, from fears they do not know how to express, from emotions they have not learned to control. They are drowning in their own suffering, and sometimes that suffering spills onto others. Buddhism teaches that the antidote to anger is not retaliation, but compassion. When you see beyond the surface of someone's behavior and into the suffering that drives it, your response changes. Instead of reacting with offense, you respond with understanding. Instead of feeding conflict, you neutralize it. This does not mean accepting mistreatment, nor does it mean justifying wrongdoing. It means recognizing that when someone hurts others, it is often because they too are hurting. The Buddha once told a story. If a man hands you a burning coal, expecting you to take it, do you grab it, or do you let it fall? When someone speaks harshly, when they insult or provoke, they are handing you their suffering. If you react with anger, you have taken it. But if you pause, breathe, and respond with wisdom, the fire never spreads. You remain untouched. Marcus Aurelius, though a Stoic rather than a Buddhist, practiced this same mindset. He reminded himself that people act according to their nature, shaped by their experiences, their hardships, their limitations. He wrote that expecting everyone to be kind and fair is like expecting a fig tree not to bear figs. People act as they are, not as we wish them to be. When this truth is fully accepted, disappointment fades and unnecessary anger dissolves. Compassion does not mean weakness. It is not about allowing people to walk over you or tolerating harmful behavior. Rather, it is about refusing to carry the negativity that others project. It is about responding with wisdom rather than impulse. It is about choosing peace, even when provoked. The next time someone frustrates you, step back. See beyond their words, beyond their actions, into the reality of their own struggles. Maybe they are exhausted. Maybe they are lonely. Maybe they have never been shown kindness themselves. When you view others this way, anger loses its grip. Instead of reacting with resentment, You respond with something far more powerful: understanding. And when you master this, you will find something rare: a mind that cannot be easily disturbed, a heart that remains light, and a peace that no one can take from you. Use breathing to reset. One deep breath changes everything. When anger rises, the body reacts before the mind even has time to process what is happening. The heart rate spikes, the muscles tense, the breath becomes shallow. The body enters fight-or-flight mode, ready to attack or defend. In that moment, emotions feel overwhelming, uncontrollable, like a storm raging inside. But Buddhism teaches that there is always a way to return to stillness, no matter how intense the emotion. And that path begins with something so simple, yet so powerful: the breath. The breath is the bridge between the mind and body, between reaction and awareness. It is the one bodily function that happens automatically, but can also be controlled at will. When anger grips the mind, the breath shortens, signaling to the brain that something is wrong. But the reverse is also true. When the breath is deep and steady, it signals the brain that there is no real threat, that there is no need for alarm. A single deep breath has the power to interrupt the cycle of anger before it fully takes hold. Buddhist monks have long used breathing as a tool for emotional mastery. When frustration arises, they do not immediately react. Instead, they turn inward, focusing on the inhale and exhale, allowing the emotion to pass through without attachment. This practice, known as anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, is a core teaching in Buddhism. It is based on the understanding that emotions are like waves. They rise, peak, and inevitably fall. But if you breathe through them, rather than reacting impulsively, they lose their power over you. The next time you feel anger creeping in before speaking, before acting, pause. Take a slow, deep breath in. Hold it for a moment. Then exhale, releasing tension along with it. Do this again and again. With each breath, you create space between the emotion and the response. With each exhale, the urgency of anger weakens. Instead of being pulled into the storm, you become the observer, standing calmly at its edge, untouched by its force. Modern neuroscience confirms what Buddhist practice has known for centuries. Studies show that deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, counteracting the body's stress response. It slows the heart rate, lowers cortisol levels, and restores clarity to the mind. This is why meditation, which centers around the breath, is one of the most effective ways to reduce stress and increase emotional resilience. Buddhism does not teach suppression of emotions, it teaches mastery over them. And mastery begins with awareness. By learning to control the breath, you learn to control the body. By learning to control the body, you gain control over the mind. And with control over the mind, anger no longer rules you. So the next time frustration rises, remember this: a single deep breath has the power to reset everything. Take that breath, return to the present, and watch as the anger that once seemed so powerful fades, leaving behind nothing but stillness. Release the ego. You are not the center of the universe. Much of our anger is not caused by what others do, but by how personally we take their actions. Someone is rude, and we assume they meant to insult us. Someone ignores us, and we feel disrespected. Someone disagrees with us, and we take it as an attack on our identity. But Buddhism teaches that the self, the version of you that takes offense, that demands recognition, that clings to pride, is an illusion. The moment you loosen your attachment to this false sense of self, you also loosen anger's grip on your mind. The ego thrives on validation. It wants to be acknowledged, respected, admired. It expects fairness, control, and recognition. When reality does not meet these expectations, it reacts with frustration, resentment, even rage. But what if you could see through this illusion? What if you could recognize that the world does not revolve around you, that most actions of others have little to do with you at all? Suddenly, the things that once angered you lose their weight. Buddhism teaches that the ego is a construct. It is not something real, but something the mind clings to. Imagine a rope being mistaken for a snake. If you truly believe it is a snake, fear and panic arise. But the moment you realize it was only a rope, all fear disappears. The same is true for the ego. If you believe in its importance, you will constantly feel threatened by criticism, by rejection, by the actions of others. But the moment you see that the self is just another thought, another mental construct, the power that anger once had over you dissolves. The Buddha taught that clinging to the ego is like carrying a heavy load on your back. Every insult, every moment of disrespect, every unmet expectation adds weight. Most people spend their lives carrying this burden, reacting to every slight, defending their pride, fighting to maintain an image of themselves. But why? If you were given the choice to put the load down, wouldn't you? This does not mean allowing others to walk over you. It does not mean abandoning self-respect. It means understanding that not everything requires a reaction, that not every offense needs to be defended, that true strength is found not in proving yourself, but in realizing that you have nothing to prove. Buddhist monks practice this mindset daily. When someone insults them, they do not react. They smile. They recognize that the words of another are just that, words, not weapons, not wounds, just sounds passing through the air. They understand that their peace is theirs to protect, and that the only way to truly win is to refuse to play the game of ego. Marcus Aurelius, though a Stoic rather than a Buddhist, had a similar perspective. He reminded himself often that other people's opinions, praise and insults were external and therefore meaningless to his inner self. He saw that taking offense was a choice, and that by letting go of pride, he gained something far more valuable: freedom. Ask yourself, how much of my frustration comes from my own ego? The next time anger arises, pause. Instead of reacting, ask, does this truly matter? Is this worth my peace? More often than not, you will find that the answer is no. Releasing the ego does not mean losing yourself. It means freeing yourself from anger, from pride, from the endless struggle to prove your worth. Because once you let go of the illusion that everything is about you, you will discover something far greater: peace that nothing and no one can take away. Meditate daily. Strengthen your mind like a muscle. If the body requires training to grow stronger, why should the mind be any different? People expect physical fitness to require effort, exercise, discipline, repetition. Yet, when it comes to emotional and mental stability, many assume it should come naturally. They expect to handle stress effortlessly, to remain calm in difficult situations, to let go of anger instantly. But without training, the mind, like an unconditioned body, remains weak, reactive, easily thrown off balance. Buddhism teaches that meditation is the ultimate training for the mind. It is not about escaping reality, nor is it about suppressing thoughts and emotions. It is about learning to observe them without being controlled by them. Just as lifting weights strengthens muscles, meditation strengthens awareness. It creates a space between emotion and reaction, between thought and identification. It teaches you to sit with discomfort without immediately acting on it, and the more you practice, the greater your control over the mind becomes. Imagine anger as a flame. An untrained mind reacts immediately. It throws fuel onto the fire, allowing irritation to grow into full-blown rage. But a trained mind sees the flame, acknowledges it, and lets it burn out on its own. This is what meditation cultivates, the ability to see emotions arise without being consumed by them, to witness anger and simply let it pass. Buddhist monks do not avoid emotions. They do not pretend they are always at peace. Instead, they train daily, knowing that the mind, left unchecked, will default to reactivity. When they meditate, they do not seek to suppress anger. They observe it, study it, understand it. Over time, they develop the ability to remain unmoved by what once would have disturbed them. Modern neuroscience supports what Buddhism has known for centuries. Studies show that regular meditation physically changes the brain, strengthening areas responsible for emotional regulation while reducing activity in the regions associated with stress and fear. People who meditate consistently show lower levels of cortisol, greater self-control, and an increased ability to remain calm under pressure. In other words, meditation is not just a spiritual practice, it is mental conditioning, a tool that rewires the brain for greater resilience. You do not need to be a monk to benefit from this practice. Even a few minutes of daily meditation can create profound change. The next time you feel anger rising, instead of reacting, pause. Close your eyes. Take a breath. Observe the sensation, the tension, the heat. Do nothing. Simply watch it. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. The anger weakens. It loses its urgency. It no longer controls you. Like any skill, mastery of the mind does not happen overnight. It is a practice, a commitment, a lifelong discipline. But those who train consistently, who strengthen their ability to remain present, who develop the habit of observing rather than reacting, these are the people who discover what so many search for but rarely find: a mind that is unshaken, a heart that is light, and a peace that cannot be disturbed. Laugh at life. Nothing is as serious as it seems. Most frustrations, when viewed from a distance, become insignificant. The things that feel unbearable today often turn into distant memories. The moments of anger that once consumed us fade into irrelevance. And yet in the heat of the moment, the mind convinces us that everything is urgent, that every inconvenience is a crisis, that every offense must be taken personally. Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from the seriousness with which we take them. A Zen master once said, "Life is a joke." The problem is, most people don't know how to laugh. This is not to say that suffering is not real, or that challenges should be ignored. Rather, it is a reminder that perspective is everything. The things we stress over, delays, rudeness, misunderstandings, are often fleeting. But the mind, if left unchecked, inflates them, making them seem more significant than they really are. The ability to step back, to recognize the absurdity in our own reactions, is one of the simplest ways to free ourselves from unnecessary frustration. Think about the last time you were truly upset about something. Maybe someone cut you off in traffic. Maybe a stranger was rude. Maybe a co-worker made a careless remark. At the time it felt irritating, even offensive. But ask yourself, does it matter now? Did it change your life in any meaningful way? Or did it disappear like all other temporary frustrations? The Buddhist approach to anger is not just about control, it is about lightness. The mind naturally wants to cling to irritation, to replay offenses, to justify resentment. But what if, instead of reacting, you simply laughed? not in a mocking way, not in bitterness, but in genuine amusement at the absurdity of the human experience. The ability to laugh at oneself, to recognize how often we take things too seriously, is a sign of wisdom, not carelessness. It shows that you understand that most things are temporary, that most conflicts are meaningless, that peace is found in letting go rather than holding on. Zen Buddhism often uses humor as a teaching tool. A student once asked a master, "How do I achieve enlightenment?" The master laughed and said, "Have you eaten your rice? Then wash your bowl." The lesson? Stop overcomplicating things. Stop searching for deep meaning in every frustration. Sometimes the answer is as simple as moving on. Even modern psychology supports this idea. Studies show that people who use humor as a coping mechanism experience lower stress levels, greater resilience, and an improved ability to navigate conflict. Laughter reduces cortisol, releases endorphins, and shifts the brain into a more relaxed state. In short, it is one of the simplest, most effective tools for diffusing anger. The next time you feel irritation creeping in, pause. Ask yourself, will this matter in a year, a month, even a day? If not, smile. See the moment for what it is: temporary, insignificant, not worth your peace. Life is unpredictable, people are imperfect, and mistakes will always happen. But if you can laugh at it, if you can let go of the need to control every detail, you will find something that anger can never offer: lightness. And in that lightness, peace becomes effortless. Practice gratitude. Anger and gratitude cannot coexist. The mind cannot hold both gratitude and anger at the same time. They are opposing forces. One expands awareness, the other narrows it. One brings lightness, the other heaviness. When gratitude is present, frustration has nowhere to take root. But most people, without realizing it, condition their minds to focus on what is missing, what is unfair, what should have been different. Buddhism teaches that shifting this perspective, cultivating gratitude instead of resentment, is one of the simplest ways to dissolve anger before it even arises. Consider how anger often begins. Someone is rude, and instead of appreciating the kindness you receive from others daily, your mind fixates on this one negative interaction. You encounter an obstacle, and rather than remembering how many times life has worked in your favor, you dwell on this single inconvenience. This is the nature of an untrained mind. It clings to what is wrong and overlooks what is right. But gratitude, when practiced intentionally, reverses this habit. It expands awareness beyond the immediate frustration, reminding you of the countless unnoticed blessings that exist alongside every difficulty. Buddhism teaches that gratitude is not just a reaction, it is a discipline. Monks, for example, begin each day with a simple reflection. I have woken up today. I have a body that moves, a mind that thinks, breath in my lungs. I lack nothing in this moment. They practice this daily, knowing that the mind, left unchecked, will always seek something to complain about, always find reasons to be dissatisfied. But when gratitude is actively cultivated, anger loses its power. It cannot thrive in a mind that is consistently reminded of abundance. Even neuroscience confirms this truth. Studies show that practicing gratitude rewires the brain, increasing serotonin and dopamine, reducing stress hormones, and improving overall emotional regulation. People who keep a gratitude journal report lower levels of anger, increased patience, and a greater ability to handle conflict with calmness. Gratitude, in the most practical sense, is a mental habit that counteracts frustration by shifting focus from what is wrong to what is right. The next time anger arises, Pause. Instead of feeding irritation, ask, what is still good in this moment? Even in difficulty, there is always something, your breath, your health, a lesson to be learned, a fleeting moment of peace between the chaos. Train your mind to find it. Not because life is perfect, not because suffering does not exist, but because gratitude reminds you that even in imperfection, even in struggle, something beautiful remains. And when gratitude becomes your habit, peace becomes your default. Surrender to the flow. Let life be as it is. There is a quiet kind of suffering that comes from resistance, the refusal to accept what is, the constant need to control, the belief that life must unfold according to your expectations. This resistance creates frustration, turning small inconveniences into deep resentments, turning everyday challenges into personal battles. But Buddhism teaches that peace is not found in control, it is found in surrender. Not surrender in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of allowing life to be as it is, without unnecessary struggle. Think about how water moves through a river. It does not resist the rocks, it flows around them. It does not fight the current, it moves with it. When obstacles appear, it does not stop, it adapts. But the human mind, when untrained, does the opposite. It resists, argues, demands that things be different. A delayed flight becomes a source of stress. A rude remark ruins an entire day. A change in plans triggers frustration, all because the mind refuses to let things be. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not caused by events. It is caused by attachment to how we think things should be. The mind clings to expectations, and when reality does not align, anger arises. But what if, instead of resisting, you simply let go? What if, instead of demanding that life follow your script, you allowed it to unfold in its own way? The moment you stop fighting against reality, you stop suffering needlessly. Zen philosophy captures this idea perfectly. Let go or be dragged. Life will continue moving whether you resist it or not. The more you cling, the more you struggle. The more you insist on control, the more exhausted you become. But when you surrender, not as an act of defeat, but as an act of wisdom, you move with life rather than against it. Even in Buddhism's core meditation practice, this principle is present. When thoughts arise, the goal is not to push them away, but to observe them, to let them pass like clouds in the sky. This same approach applies to life. When difficulties come, instead of tightening your grip, loosen it. When things don't go as planned, instead of reacting with frustration, pause, breathe, accept, and in that acceptance, find freedom. The world will never be completely predictable. People will never act exactly as you want. Plans will always change. But peace is not found in making life perfect. It is found in learning to be at ease with its imperfections. To surrender to the flow is not to lose control, but to gain something far greater. A mind that is free, unshaken, and at peace no matter what happens. Anger is not something that happens to you. It is something that arises within you. The world does not create your frustration. Your resistance does. The actions of others do not control your emotions. Your mind's attachment to expectations does. But Buddhism teaches that freedom from anger is always within reach, not by suppressing emotions, but by understanding them, by seeing through their illusions, by choosing not to carry what does not serve you. Each lesson we explored is not just an idea, it is a practice. The more you recognize that everything is temporary, the less you cling to passing frustrations. The more you observe your thoughts without attachment, the less power they hold over you. The more you let go of expectations, the fewer disappointments you will experience. The more compassion you cultivate, the harder it becomes for others to disturb your peace. The more you train your mind through meditation, the stronger and more resilient it becomes. The more you embrace humor, gratitude, and surrender, the lighter your existence feels. True mastery of the mind is not about avoiding conflict or suppressing anger. It is about reaching a point where nothing needs to be avoided or suppressed, where the ups and downs of life come and go, yet your peace remains untouched. Buddhism does not promise that frustration will never arise, but it does offer something greater, the wisdom to see it for what it is. A passing cloud, a flickering flame, a moment that fades unless you hold on to it. So, the choice is always yours. Carry anger or release it. Resist life or flow with it. React or observe. The path to peace is simple, but it is walked only by those who choose to take the first step.